The back of the Times this morning. United, Manchester United that is, ban for journalists. Under fire, manager Ten Hag says he has the backing of his players, except maybe one or two. So that's not the full backing, is it? But banning journalists, what is this? Is this Manchester United trying to regain control of the narrative, or is it an attack on the free press? What is it? Apparently the journalists are from Sky Sports, the Daily Mirror, ESPN and the Manchester Evening News. They're banned, apparently, certain individuals, from attending press conferences. They're out until they're back in, if you like. But banning journalists, is this right out of the Sir Alex Ferguson playbook? You'll remember this.
I had some of these banned for a few weeks, and to be honest, I get fed up with it. Your job is to tell the truth, right? That's your job. You can quote me when I'm accurate about things that I've said. I'm not going to have you twisting everything I say, okay? So the next time it's finished, you don't have to get back in, okay? To make that clear to you, you don't get back in, finished. I'm fed up having to read papers and talk things I say, and I know I've said, and you completely twist it around, lie. Your job is to tell the truth. That's your job as a journalist. And if you can't do that, you're in the wrong job, okay? So make that clear.
So that was then and this is now. And now is Manchester United saying the measures were taken not because of the stories themselves, that because the club was not contacted for comment in advance. Ten Hag was asked outright if the outlets mentioned were banned.
They should come to us first and not go around in our back printing articles. That's not the right thing. I think we have another relationship, and then they can, if they should give that to us beforehand, we have a normal and a professional discussion and debate about it.
So he's saying you should come to us first, and then we'll talk about it. But would that really happen? Simon, what we're seeing here, is this United trying to regain control of the narrative, as I said, or is it an attack on the free press?
Well, I certainly don't think it's an attack on the free press. The press don't have a God-given right to do precisely what they want. They don't have a God-given right to put their version of events and spin it the way they want to, which is often the way that the press operates and the way that the press interpret things. And I'd make Alex Ferguson right. Journalistically, at times, people misrepresent, misdirect, and create their own version of events. And in this instance, if this story doesn't have much legs on it, and if it does have lots of legs on it, why didn't they bother checking with Man United? It's a hugely divisive story.
Well, what were United going to say?
Well,
hold on, you're right.
But hold on.
You're right. There is 50. No, it's 40%.
No, I wouldn't suggest that they would say that. What I would suggest they would say is that they can't now say what they're saying now, which is, you didn't give us the right to respond to this. This is a hugely divisive story at a very difficult time. That's why it's dropped in this way. If they went to United and United went no comment, then United couldn't trot this out. They couldn't turn around and say, you didn't give us the right to respond. The reasons why this was probably dropped is because they weren't interested in United's response. It was a strong story as far as they were concerned, and they wanted to go with it because it's going to get what they want, which is attention. It doesn't mean it has substance. It doesn't mean it's stand-upable. It doesn't mean it's the right story, and it certainly doesn't mean that the free press have a right to do precisely what they want. That gets trotted out. I was quite happy to throw journalists out of press conferences and out of my environment when they overstepped the mark on far too many occasions, because journalists and the media are there, as Alex Ferguson says, to report events. Now, what we've developed in a society is everything in the media has changed. It's now opinion pieces. People create opinions. And that's fine if the media have changed that way, and understandable. And this is why these sort of shows exist.
I don't think the media's changed in any way.
Well, hold on. Can we just go through
the journalists involved think that what they're pursuing and what they ultimately end up writing or reporting is factually correct.
If you look at the mainstream media for a start, it is most certainly changed. Once upon a time, it was reporting news. Now it is creating news. Now it is offering opinions on subject rather than reporting the news.
The only thing's wrong with the story. The only thing wrong with the story really is the fact that it says a number, 50%. You don't have to have someone on the inside. You just watch United play to know that not everyone's on board. So the story's pretty much factual.
But that's not the characterisation that Jim is asking for.
I know.
Jim is asking, is it right for Manchester United to try and control the narrative? And Man United's argument is this: not that the story is wrong or right, Their argument is, you didn't come to us.
Right.
You've just run a story.
But do
you
they
didn't
have
come to us.
Is that normal procedure to come to the club for every story they run?
Well, it's a pretty big story, isn't it? You're talking about one of the biggest football clubs
Some
in
of
the
the
world
players aren't on board
anarchy.
with it?
Well, it's no saying there's anarchy at that football club.
Yeah, well, I haven't read the detail, but generally, the story says to me that some of the dressing room aren't on board. Well, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to work that one out when you watch United play, does it? Yeah. So what my point is, if you're Erik Ten Hag and Man United, you dismiss it for what it's worth. It's ridiculous. Someone's wrote a story given a percentage.
Did this story name all the
hold on.
players?
Someone's given a percentage. Some journalist has written a percentage number of the players who aren't on board. What a ridiculous story in itself. It's fish and chip paper. I'd be Erik Ten Hag going, not interested in that. Ban who you don't have to ban anyone. Bring them in, the idiots. I mean, what the hell? Who would read that article?
But what
and
it
think,
is,
oh my God, half the dressing room must be gone because this paper says it.
Do you think the journalists involved? And it's not just journalists from one outlet.
Yep.
Journalists from Sky Sports, journalists from the Mirror, journalists from the ESPN, and journalists from the Manchester Evening News. They haven't all got together and said, "Let's go with this."
No.
Individually, they've collated information and they think that information is noteworthy and worth making public.
That some of the players aren't on board.
And that is their job.
And that's fine.
That's their job.
But if you can stand that up and you can support it, then you don't have a problem asking the people that you're making the allegation about. Having sued newspapers repeatedly and endlessly for the tripe that they write, right? And it's been apparently stood up and they've researched their articles and then they've got a defamation written, a big payout to me. I know what I'm talking about. And the courtesy of a big story like this is, you're going to run a story where 50% of the dressing room is against the manager. You've got a new owner coming in, or a new part owner coming in. All the story is about Man United. A reasonable level of communication would have been phone up Man United, asking for a question. Man United say no comment. Fair game. Away you go. They had their chance. Why would you not give Man United? If you say no comment,
no, sorry,
United can't now turn around and say, you didn't come to us, you didn't give us fair right of reply, so now we're going to treat you with the contempt you've treated us.
I'm asking you, if they did, how does it work? Would United then, if they can they then say to the press, well, where have you got that story from?
Well, of course they can.
Of course they can.
Or they can spin the narrative.
But they're not going to tell them, are they?
No, but Danny, you're missing the central point of United's position, whether I agree with it or not. United's argument is, we're going to treat you with the same disdain that you treated us.
Right, I'm with you.
You went and you got some sources, and you're not going to give us who those sources are. You've got a story. Why didn't you come to us and ask about it?
Where's the disdain?
Well, the disdain is that it's courtesy.
It's not a personal attack on Manchester United.
Well, what is it then?
Where's the disdain?
Well, it's an attack on the manager.
Well, a normal way of operating.
Those individuals involved here, Simon, have gathered information which they feel is accurate enough to act upon.
And under normal circumstances, is there any particular reason with such a substantial story that you wouldn't get your bases covered to say to Man United, we've got this allegation being made about your dressing room, and Man United go, we don't want to touch that, no comment.
I'm quite sure the journalists from Sky Sports, the Mirror, ESPN and the Manchester Evening News will have said, in the process of going with the story, now Manchester United will deny this, of course.
But that's not the point, Jim, is it?
That's the whole point.
But Man United, first and foremost, journalists, you don't have a God-given right to do what you want, and you don't have a God-given right to be in a press conference with Man United.
No, but they haven't just invented it. These will be experienced journalists. What is the job of a journalist? To keep the public updated about current events and noteworthy information.
Report news.
Is this
they might have it. They might have it as news.
To report news and to give it from around.
Well, do you report news in your column?
To report news.
Do you report news in your column?
News. I don't create news.
You create opinion.
Yeah, I create an opinion. Right, and if I'm challenged upon that opinion, I'd be able to debate it with the people that I'm challenged upon.
The key word there is the verb you create, to create.
So if I make an accusation, but hang on, if I make an accusation about somebody, and an accusation that can't be substantiated, I expect a consequence. So if I make a very strong accusation about somebody, I would more often than not either know what I'm talking about, or I'd question the people that I'm talking about first.
So are you
suggesting
the journalists from Sky Sports, the Mirror, ESPN and the Manchester Evening News don't know what they're talking about?
Yeah. There might be a possibility of that.
But why would they have gone with it?
Well, I don't know. Why don't you ask John Cross and Darren Lewis that wrote an article that cost their newspaper an enormous amount of money about me that was completely untrue? 3 articles.
That's a totally different set of circumstances.
No, it's not. But you're giving me, you're saying to me, is it beyond the wit of man to suggest that a journalist...
Was that a personal attack on you?
Yes, and a personal...
Well, you're right to act
and
upon
a personal attack on my football club.
Yeah.
And this is a personal attack on Manchester United and its manager and its control of the dressing room.
Yeah, but what Jim's suggesting is that the guys involved have probably got some substance for the.
But no one's disputing that. Who's disputed that?
But then if you've got some truth, why would you? The only reason you'd do it to go to Manchester United is be courteous for ongoing relationships.
Why did why did every outlet in the media yesterday morning go with, it's expected today that Sheffield United will announce that Paul Heckingbottom
because the club was leaking it.
Is leaving the football. How do you know that?
Because they were.
How do you know that?
Well, why wouldn't I?
How do you know the club was leaking it?
Same way that you do. Because the club were leaking it.
That Paul Heckingbottom is set to leave the football club and Chris
Wilder was probably
is
leaking it. His agent was probably leaking it. The club were leaking it.
You don't know that.
But did you go and verify it?
Do you know that?
Well, did
because
you go
in the last
it?
30 seconds you've been creating new headlines.
In what respects?
Club is leaking stories. Wilder maybe leaked it. I would very much doubt that. An agent might have leaked it.
But before the article,
you're creating a new narrative.
Did anybody go and check with the club? Did anybody go and have that conversation with the club?
Did you before you said that?
But I'm following your lead because you're the journalist. You're the one that gave me the information.
Here's the situation.
So you're the journalist.
What we did was this. In this particular instance, we got it from the very top, didn't we?
Right. So what's your point?
We spoke to Prince Abdullah.
So I relied on your source. In this instance, the very top is Manchester United. Why would a journalist not go and validate it, or at least say to Man United, "We've got this story." Man United go, "We've got no comment." And then Man United couldn't pull this stroke, could they? They couldn't turn around and say, "You didn't give us the courtesy of a response, an opportunity to respond." You went with the story.
But if the normal protocol is not to do that, why would you do it?
Why is it not the normal protocol?
I don't know. I'm asking.
It is a normal protocol.
Is it? Well,
it's
then,
a big story.
Well, then they've jeopardised.
It's a big story because it's a bombshell story. It's a big story all over the back page of newspapers, all over every press.
So every single story about Manchester United, you've got to go to the media people. You've got to go to the media office to either can you confirm this or deny it?
Depends on the substance. Depends upon the style and the length and breadth of the story. This is quite a significant story. This is quite a damning story, and I would have expected journalists to go to Man United and say, "Why wouldn't they?" Okay, let me rephrase the question.
To go to Manchester United and say what?
This is the observations that we've had, and do you have a comment? Why wouldn't they? You're a journalist.
And what do you think the comment would be?
Let me rephrase it. Why wouldn't they?
Well, as I said, the journalists from Sky Sports, the Mirror, ESPN and Manchester Evening News, they have probably put in their article.
Why wouldn't they?
Manchester United will deny this.
But why wouldn't they? You as a journalist, if you heard a rumour about XYZ manager leaving, you'd phone the club or you'd phone someone if it was.
We don't deal in rumours.
So I ask you the question, why wouldn't they go to Man United?
Because each of the four
they didn't want to.
No, each of the four journalists
because they didn't want to.
No, you're answering your own question. Do you want me to answer it?
Sure.
Each of the four journalists felt their information was strong enough.
Based upon what? That's your assumption.
Well,
How do you know
we
that?
don't know.
Based upon what they do for a living. When we come back after this,
journalism is the greatest profession in the world.
When we come back after, you write a column. When we come back after this, we'll find out what Ten Hag said when he was asked directly if he does have the backing of the players. Stay with us. And we're all talking about this story about Manchester United banning 4 journalists. Under fire manager Ten Hag says he has the backing of his players, except maybe 1 or 2. It says here in the Times. That's not me just saying it. It says here in the Times. Paul Hurst's article this morning. Manchester United banned 4 journalists from Erik Ten Hag's press conference yesterday, during which the manager defiantly insisted he had the backing of his squad. And this is the whole point. The journalists involved, who are now out until they're back in, have suggested that maybe he doesn't have the 100% backing of every member of his squad. Anyway, let's hear what Ten Hag did actually say when asked that.
Oh yes, I'm sure. But you can see, for instance, the comeback against Brentford, the Burnley game, the Fulham game. So every time the team is there, showed great character, so great determination, resilient. So yeah, we are together. And you can see you can't play such great football, what we did lately, if there is no unity. I listen always to my players. And I give them always the opportunities to tell. And if the players have a different opinion, of course I will listen. But they haven't told me. Or yeah, maybe 1 or 2. But it's about, so in general, so the majority, they want to play like this. Proactive, dynamic, brave. That is what they want. And you can see the players are behind it because of the performances against Everton, Galatasaray. And we are really improving.
Ten Hag there saying, Simon, if the players have a different opinion, of course I will listen, but they haven't told me that, or maybe 1 or 2 have. But in general, the majority want to play like this, proactive, dynamic, brave. That is what they want. And again, it makes you think, well, are they all singing from the same hymn sheet? Are they all coming from the same page here? Are they all thinking his way, is our way?
Well, Jim, let me take the
Maybe
question, because I've played, and it's a difficult one to be. Let me tell you now, whether you're winning or losing, there's always a group in the squad who aren't happy and whinging, because that's what footballers do, and I was one of them. You're never going to have a full squad on board, and you go to your agent, you go to your mates, and you go to whoever you're talking to, and your journalist friend who you might know and built a relationship with over the years, and you have a whinge to them. And then the results aren't good. And there's a couple of others who might win. The training's crap. Why is he playing him ahead of him? He's got his favourites. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. And that's the way it goes. And these stories are just part of it, part of the job.
Yeah.
You can't have everyone on board. Now, ultimately, what you see on the pitch gives you everything you need to know about whether players are on board with what the manager's doing tactically, from a personable level, motivational, whatever. And not everyone's on board. Simple. It's obvious to see.
And this could be the case
They
here.
can't beat the big teams because they've not got a team. They're individuals. Now,
we haven't checked with Manchester United that is
but
isn't
on the
case.
flip side to that, to be fair to Ten Hag, he's had a great first season and exceeded expectation in many respects. So he's learning on the job. He's never managed at a club this size and a group of players like this before.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing he said in his interview, which I did like, was when he said every job he's been at and every year he's managed, he's hit his targets. And so far, you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he does this season. Do I think he's the man to make United competitive again? No. I've said that on air and I think Simon agrees. There's not enough of those players on board with what he's trying to do. I can see it on the pitch. I don't need somebody's agent or somebody's dad to tell me that and listen or read a journalist's article to confirm that. Now, if he thinks they are on board, he's watching a different team to me.
Well, he's hardly going to go into a press conference. And just for the point of reference, when myself and Danny are writing columns, we're not making allegations about people.
No.
Right? We're making observations. These are allegations that are quite substantial about the nature of that football club and the disharmony that's in it. So there's a different dynamic here.
Maybe not everybody's on board.
The allegations are that
saying.
50% of the dressing room is against the manager.
Yeah.
And
by the way, you can like a manager and still not be on board with his football.
And of course,
but the key question here, Simon, is why ban the outlets or the journalists representing the outlets who have suggested this?
As a kick up the bum, probably.
Because they've told you, they've told
why
you that,
ban them?
but they've told you their reasons why. Now, whether we agree with them or not,
but it won't be a lifetime ban.
No, of course
they'll be back in sooner than later.
Of course they
so
will.
That, in my view, that makes the ban pretty well nigh ridiculous.
Well, I think it's implicitly understood.
Meaningless.
I think it's implicitly understood whether you agree or disagree that when someone makes an allegation about someone in most walks of life, that allegation is put to the person that you're making it against, and they get a right to respond. In this instance, it would appear that Manchester United weren't given that right to respond. So that's their objection. So as a result of that, Man United have said, right, you guys, you don't get to come in for a period of time. And if you do it again, we're going to have a bigger problem with you. It's going to last even longer. And I actually fundamentally agree with that.
You don't believe that a journalist should go with the information that he or she has collated?
I believe it's implicitly...
When he or she believes that information is correct?
I believe it's implicitly understood in the industry. That's why you've had situations like Leveson and all the obligations around the PCC to make sure that journalists can stand up articles properly and be able to support them by giving people that they're making the allegations against the right of response.
See, where you and I disagree is this. At no time should a football club shut down certain outlets of the media.
Why? You don't have a God-given right to be in there.
At no time.
Why
should they do that?
Why?
Because it's the media's job.
And it's,
well, it depends.
But
If
it's
it gets
not their
personal.
It's the media's job.
If it gets
and these
personal.
professional people who work for those outlets, Sky Sports, The Mirror, ESPN and Manchester Evening News, will feel the information they was strong enough to go with it.
But again, I would suggest to you, and most people that...
Ten Hag and United didn't want it out there.
But most
hence, this is the direction they've gone in.
But most people that have been on the receiving end of journalism, rather than the journalists themselves, will tell you, as the law tells you itself, and as the governance around newspapers and media outlets suggests, that there is an implicit understanding that if you make an allegation against somebody, you give them a right to respond.
It's hardly an allegation. It's hardly a personal a personal assassination. It's just a generic statement made by many managers. If you're on £8 million a year managing in the Premier League, you know what you sign up for.
Well, then
Get on with it.
We'll see it more regularly regularly. We'll see the
Who
constant...
cares?
Well, clearly Manchester United do.
Well, they shouldn't, because it's a story that's been run a million times about a million managers at a million clubs. You're on £8 million a year and you decide to be managing Manchester United, and you're concerned when someone writes an article saying some of the lads have gone in the dressing room.
Hang on, who's saying that the manager's concerned?
Well, somebody is, because they must have spoken to him.
The senior manager at Man United is suggesting that this is a story that they are uncomfortable that they weren't given a right to respond on to.
They've added flames to the fuel.
And they may well have done, but it doesn't alter the parameters of the fact that the press don't have a God-given right to be there.
I'm not saying they do, because I've had things written about me, Simon. I hear you.
Press by consent.
Simon, how often do you see in the media, just as we come up to 11 o'clock, how often do you see in a newspaper or in talkSPORT or in Sky Sports News, did it umpteen times, the job is to collect accurate information. And in your view, if it's strong enough, you go with it.
And it's football.
Those four journalists of those four outlets have gone with it.
You're not listening. You're not listening. You're not understanding the parameters of what it's like to be on the other side of a debate and what that situation puts yourself in. It's a clear obligation upon the press to stand stories up.
So you say a ban's the right way?
No, I don't think it's an ideal way. But
Shut them down.
But what do you do when a group of newspapers have done precisely what they want to do? The courtesy hasn't been extended. There's no difficulty.
Depends on the story.
Well, this is a significant story for Man United.
It's fish
well, you don't think it,
ship wrap.
but you don't think it is, right?
You deny it.
Okay, so you've
deny it.
So you've got hang on. You've got a publicly floated business whose share price gets altered. You've got a new potential investor coming into the business. You've got a football club that gets splashed across the newspapers dawn till dusk on every single subject matter. I think every now and again, if an allegation is made about you that your manager, the manager that alters your share price when they get fired, all of a sudden has lost the entire dressing room or a significant proportion of it. 50%. I think 50% is a significant proportion. I think that there's every entitlement to be slightly irritated about it.
Yeah. Slightly irritated, maybe, but not a ban, surely. It's 11.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.